So before we start our fourth session, we wanted to check where people are at and whether you have started having a look at steps from step 1 to step 3 on the online course. And again, you can feel free to unmute or write in the chat, however you're more comfortable.
Okay, no responses on the chat.
Shall we go by thumbs up? How many people have looked at steps from 1 to 3 on the online course?
Everyone, Bram calling from Uganda. Okay, George is giving us a thumbs up. I assume that's for the for your question, and Becky is giving us as well, and Christine as well. Okay, and Shashir Rao is fine. So we got some answers.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody who hasn't had a chance to get to the end of module 3? I think we're fine.
Okay, so let me share the plan for today. We are going to address any questions that there may be from the previous sessions, then review step 3, which is the step we covered in our last session, introduce step 4, that is about checking your case, and view an example of step 3 from or step 4 from the Agroecology Fund catalog. And then we will try a demo on how to practice step 4 in the online case development platform. And for sure, there will be more questions. Does that sound good? Is there any questions that you may have at this point, especially if you haven't seen the course online? You may feel a bit confused. I wonder whether we should share the link to the course again in the chat.
I will do that.
So for whoever has been able to look at step 3, which is about building the evidence for your case, do you have any questions? If not, do you have any other question about step 1 that was about developing the statement for your case, and or step 2 that was about framing your case?
We have a very quiet room this afternoon.
Is everyone familiar with what we mean when we talk about developing the statement for your case?
Yes, Bram says yes.
And what about when we talk about framing your case?
Sometimes framing is a little bit confusing. because I have had a couple of questions on framing. Sometimes it's confused with defining the audience and values. Which is a very important part of it. So remember, we've got a statement that has an if-then structure. If you do this, then something will happen. Therefore, we invite you to take an action. So that is a statement. Then we select the audience and we analyze them in terms of how they think, what are their values, what system of knowledge we can engage with them so that our statement is understood and we can convince them. And then framing has to do with, Romina, your computer disappeared for a moment. We're still here. Yes. I don't know what happened. I'm not seeing your screen anymore.
Some technical issue, the screen sharing has stopped because the external display is disconnected.
Disconnected.
It is connected.
It is connected.
Okay, let me share again then. Sorry.
So I was saying, so we come to the framing, and framing is how we are going to think about presenting it. And sometimes, very often, our framing comparisons. So quite often when we are talking about agroecology, we are thinking about how agroecology compares with the traditional system of agriculture, with a more industrial-based system. So a comparison is one of the frames. The other way, another way that we can use as part of the framing, and it's not one or the other, sometimes we combine that, is by using the comparison with the values that we're looking for. And so we say, okay, so we are going to do this agroecology process because we, for example, respect the rights of nature, or because we want to protect Mother Earth. And so we address the values. And so the framework is a value-based framework. And I remember in the last round of cases that were fully developed, the framework that was used was a legal framework. So the obligation of the Kenyan government to fulfill the agreements, international agreements that it had committed to, and that the seed legislation was not complying with. So frameworks is the system that is part of the way of living or thinking, or the legislation that fits into our case. So where we're going to put our case, because that will be giving it the structures, the strength, the value in front of the audience that will make it possible for them to accept the evidence. And Romina is having technical problems here.
My screen keeps disconnecting for some reason. It says that one is not connected.
Let me just double check. Our apologies for that. Do you have an HDMI port on that side? Yes, you do. So connect this on your HDMI port. The other one? Yes. There you go. Let's see if we can. Apologies for this technical hiccup. There you go. It's connected.
Yeah, but it's my whole computer is
Your
not
whole
responding. I'm so sorry.
So while you sort out your computer, and you might need to, if it doesn't work, you might need to reboot, or
yeah, if I can touch something, that would be great.
then I can take questions. Have you thought about the frameworks that you are going to be using? Could you tell me about what sort of framework you are using in the case that you would be building? Or type it.
Apologies.
I am the host, so you can do that.
Will you be able, is the audio with you? Because if
I can turn on the audio on as soon as you finish. Can you hear me now? We are here. It's just that we had a problem with Romina's computer.
And your camera is connected.
My camera is connecting because this is not connected. Apologies for this. I expect you can hear me now. Hello, hello, hello.
Although I will need it back in a second.
No, you. Yes, you will. You can see, you can hear us. Perfect. We are sorry. Romina's computer is just not behaving for us this morning. And you can hear us? Okay, excellent. I'm going to change the microphone to make sure that, yes, that's the correct microphone. And Romina, you join and share your screen.
Yeah.
But we remain with this. You join without sound.
I will just, I will need that big screen back.
Okay. You need the big screen back.
When?
You've got the big screen.
Oh yeah, correct.
Yes. So I was asking you, what sort of frameworks are you thinking of using for a potential case? Do you have any? Because that will be an interesting way of answering our questions. If you are understanding the concept of the framing of the case. You're okay there. Just complete your rebooting process. And if anybody wants to answer with your own voice, please open your microphone. So the example of slow food that we have in the course uses the framework that is a comparison of the costs between agroecological management of the crop and the costs without agroecological management of the crop, without the practices, and therefore want to demonstrate that they are attempting to that agroecology does better. Christina, can you hear me? Are you still an interpreter? Yes. Okay. Are you back online, Romina? You are back online. Perfect.
No, I just wanted to check if we are with this audio or with that audio.
We're with this audio.
Because I heard.
Yes, you don't join the audio, and then you will be able to continue now. And if you share your screen. And I think now that you have rejoined, we can move on.
Yes.
But I didn't get any answers, so I am not sure whether we are supporting you enough to understand the concept of agroecology in framing your case. So I'm trying to make sure that first you can hear me, and I would love to have one answer.
Yeah, someone is message in the chat.
Can you use a comparison in policy and how one can do it? Okay. That would be an interesting thing. I suppose policies work at the level of uh, government or government area. So, for example, if a district were to have a set of policies on agroecology, you would expect that, and your case is about how policies can influence the, and let me make a statement. If a district adopts policies for agroecology that support the commercialization of uh, products that are free of pesticides reaching the market by creating spaces for farmers to sell their products where consumers are confident that they can buy products that are free of pesticides, then farmers and consumers will benefit from economic and health point of view. Therefore, we invite districts to adopt policies that create this type of markets and short circuits for the benefit of their population. Okay. So the framework will be the policy. So I will have to compare districts with policies that are like the ones that I'm talking about, and districts without them. So I'm using a comparison of districts with different types of policies. My framework is a policy, is a comparison of policies between two different types of districts. And that's, without thinking too deep or too hard, that would be my example. And we have another question here. I love when you ask questions. Maybe I will frame our case using a problem solution impact by using a comparative analysis approach. Perfect. So the problem solution impact will be set up in your statement, and your framework will be a comparative framework. So we're getting there. Thank you. I really, really appreciate when you make these comments or ask questions. And that is fantastic. Any more that you want to share? That will be very, very useful. Shashi, hello. Okay, Romina, we move on.
Okay. So let's revise step 3, that is about building the evidence. So how do you choose, gather, and present your evidence based on what we shared in the last session? And that is for you to answer. Again, you can unmute yourself or write in the chat. Even if you want to say, I don't know. So say you have defined what the statement is for your case, and you say, if you do so and so, then you will achieve X, Y, and Z. And you have framed your case based on a comparison or right-based or value-based, and then you have to support that by using evidence. How do you do that? How do you choose and gather and present the evidence that you use in support of the statement for your case?
Tell me, Romina.
So then you need to identify or generate available information and sources, which means, especially for those working in organizations where you have examples of years of experience, for sure you will have available information that you can use as evidence. So you just need to identify what specific information and the sources where you can gather it from. And then you have to make sure that this evidence that you want to present is reliable, it's relevant for your case, and it is legitimate. And it is also very helpful if you use multiple types.
Let me take you there on a point. So, what tells me what evidence do I need? So, for example, we were talking about this comparison of policies and of districts with different policies, and I said that it would, if district had policies that were in favor of agroecology and markets that made products available to consumers and facilitated the participation of farmers that produce that type of product, they would benefit economically and from a health point of view. So the evidence will have to address the consequences that I am specifying if that happens then. So the evidence addresses the then.
Uh-huh.
The framework addresses the comparison, like with and without policies, because I said it was a comparison. The evidence then will have to tell me about what economic indicators I can use from the districts with and without to make the comparison. So I need to go and search for that evidence. And I like the fact that you put identify first, generate second, because generating evidence requires quite a bit of effort and takes time. So it ideally, when you get to the point of developing your case, you already have that evidence. You are able to generate a case when you know already that you have evidence to prove it. If you don't have the evidence, or you suspect that it is going to happen, then perhaps what you have is a hypothesis that needs to be validated with data, and probably you won't generate it. So most of the time, we think you already have the evidence. Occasionally, in the process of developing your case, you say, I actually need more evidence, more information about this, and you might go to generate that evidence. And
And also, when we talk about being relevant, we need to remember what kind of audience we are trying to communicate with.
Absolutely, because in the system of values and system of knowledge that the audience has, we actually need to consider what evidence is accepted by them as relevant, legitimate, and reliable. Of course, it has to be for us because we need to be 100% satisfied that our information, the information that we're going to use as evidence, has those three characteristics. And your answer actually highlights something, Romina, and it is that multiple types of evidence can come. And what are multiple types of evidence? Some of the evidence is going to be quantitative. If we, for example, are talking about economic benefits, some of it might be testimonies. Some of them can be opinions. Some of it can be facts of other types that can be brought out from lab analysis, or that come from the numbers of people who join a type of market or not. So all sorts of evidence. Sometimes the evidence is even visual evidence. So and in building evidence, the more you can do a multiple dimension case, the more you're able to convince an audience.
And I think we had a raised hand.
You have a raised hand. Oh, okay. And where is the raised hand?
I think it was George. It just appeared on my screen.
Well, George, if it was you, are you talking or are you typing?
Yeah.
Please, George.
Let me talk this time. Yeah, thank you very much for the good example in policy.
What happened? We stopped hearing you.
We can't hear you anymore.
We cannot hear you, George. We could hear you for a moment.
Hello, George? Maybe your mic is no longer working.
While Josh comes back, I've got something from Jermaine, and they say that we rely on our experiences from farmer field schools, which provide evidence to support our arguments. We use literature reviews and official statistics. Now, it would be interesting to. My question would be, I think the official statistics don't come from the farmer field schools if you're talking about statistics from the government, because very few governments that I know, or no government that I know, is collecting information about officials, about that specific group. You might have indicators from your farmer field schools that can be compared with the same indicators that come from official statistics, and that will be a very interesting comparison. It's one that I have always wanted to do, but one that I find sometimes difficult because the official statistics don't get the evidence, don't get the indicators at the level or from the same type of farmers. But I would love to see what you have found in the country that you are. And George, we are not hearing you.
Would you like to type in the chat? Because we were not able to hear your comment or question.
I'm not sure George is here still, but yes, George is there. You're muted. Okay. Well, Josh comes back.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, please feel free to raise your hand again.
Josh is.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I don't know if he is.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a problem with network.
Okay.
Yeah. My question was, you had given a very good example on the comparison in policies, and the issue of market and the policy. So, which audience can we target with this one? Is it the farmers? Is it policymaker?
Well, I was assuming, and this is a made-up example, Josh. Well, you see,
Yes.
if what I am saying is, if districts adopt policies, then this will happen. Then I was assuming that I would be addressing that case to policymakers that work at district level.
Okay.
Because I would want to demonstrate to them that it is in their interest to adopt those policies within their districts. Or it might be higher up. So the central government that is supporting the development of policies at district level. So it always, when you set up your statement, you have in mind a specific audience. So how do we start this process of generating a case? You know that you want to convince someone, that is your audience, to do something, so to change their attitude, to change their behavior, and then you're going to look for the evidence that demonstrate to them that it is in their best interest, that it goes with their values, that they are compelled by legislation to do what you are telling them. And that is what we are insisting on. So there is a very tight relationship between the statement, your understanding of the audience, the framing of the case, and the evidence that you gather. And that whole cycle will convince them to do what you're saying.
So then when we talk about evidence, what types of sources of evidence can you have? And we saw that you can have first-hand, such as primary sources of evidence, or second-hand, secondary sources of evidence. So first-hand would be, for example, when you're presenting testimonies and you go and interview your participants. In most cases, it's often male and female farmers. And that would constitute like a first-hand primary source of evidence. Or you can go back to some data and reports that you may have already generated, or you may go to the literature that has already been published on that particular topic, and then you can combine a mix of the two.
And I suppose we emphasize this so that you don't feel that everything has to come from you collecting that information.
That means if you want to build a case, you don't necessarily need to run trials and experiments and have to wait for the whole cycle and your seasons. You're very likely to already have the information available for you to use as evidence to build a case.
And it raises a question. And what about if I don't have evidence that helps me with the case? What do I do?
Well, you may want to reconsider the kind of case that you want to present based on the information that you have so far, or you may want to reconsider building a case that can be built using primarily secondary types of evidence.
And if I don't have evidence, basically, I cannot make a case that is based on evidence.
Or, option 3, you just have to wait to make your case.
You, as I said, you might have a hypothesis, but you will only be able to say that that is the case when you have the evidence that demonstrates it first to you and then to the audience. So it is actually quite an interesting process. So let me give you an example. I was working with a group of with a case, and they said agroecological products improve the nutrition of children. And I said, well, where is the evidence of that? And they said, well, they are better for children because they don't have harmful toxics in them. But that doesn't mean that the children are going to be better nourished. Nutrition of children has to be demonstrated by the nutritional status of the children. And they didn't have evidence about that. So we need to be very careful when we make this statement so that our evidence addresses the consequences of the action directly. And the reason why we need to do that is that if we are not careful, then our case will be rejected by anybody that says, no, that doesn't make sense. Nutrition actually doesn't depend on what you eat so much as the hygiene that exists in the household, the general status of health, and not so much. So is what you eat is one of the elements. And if I don't have the evidence that demonstrate to them that what I'm saying is true, then my case is a weak case, and we need strong cases in this business.
We have, I think, already addressed this question about what does the evidence need to support. And we need to make sure that there is, as Carlos was saying, a a strong link between the claims that we make in the statement and the frame and the strategy that we use for the case, and then obviously the evidence that we use to support the claim and the frame. But then what else do you need to consider when selecting the evidence? And we have mentioned this as well. You should always remember what are the priorities and values of the target audience, because the target audience are the people you want to take action on your case. They're the people you want to convince. So I think we have given a good reminder about building the evidence. So just to recap, we need to remember that your evidence needs to prove your case. It needs to support the framing. It needs to be appropriate for the audience. It's very helpful and makes it like a stronger case if you can combine multiple types of evidence. And you need to think about the formats that you will use to deliver it, because that will also make an impact on whether or not it is convincing enough. And it needs to be clear and convincing.
And I have a question here from Josh. Can you use outcome harvesting as evidence in areas where evidence is not available? Well, you need to decide whether outcome harvesting is information that you can use as evidence. And if that is the case, if you say, yes, I can use outcome harvesting as information for evidence, then you have evidence. So the question is not, well, which information you can use, is whether the information that you have addresses directly the claims that you are making in your statement. And if the answer is yes, I can use that information to support my claims, to support my statement, then your information becomes evidence. Remember that evidence is information that you use to demonstrate your claim. And the difference between information and evidence is that information is passive, is there. When you use it to support your claim, that information becomes evidence.
So to bring it back to an example, for example, if you say in your statement, if you use this particular agroecological practice, then you will have better yields for these crops. So then if you make that statement, you will need to have indicators that prove for each crop that you are referring to in your statement, that prove that actually there is a direct link between using that specific agroecological practice to the results that you get for your crops. Or if you're talking about soil health, you will need to prove indicators that are specific to show the health of the soil and so on.
And last week we were at a meeting of the Agroecology Fund in Brazil, and we visited a farm. And you're talking about practices to improve the soil. And this farmer, who was a young woman, was using agroforestry in her farm, and she was putting huge amounts of organic matter that came from the agroforestry process into the soil. And when we got to the edge of the field, next door, there was a field that was like hers was like that field 3 years before. And the comparison was huge. And I've got photographs of the field next door and her field, and photographs of the amount of organic matter that was there. And that I would use as proof that that agroecological system that he was using is delivering much more carbon into her soil. I could go and use a soil analysis for the percentage of organic matter, and that will also add to the evidence. So different types of evidence can be used.
Okay.
Oh, dear.
If there are no other questions. we can go back to the slow food example that we saw in the previous sessions. And by looking at the evidence used in that example, and for those who haven't yet looked at the online course, we refer to this example because it is the same example that we present in the online course. So it will sound familiar to you when you go and check the steps in the course. So they combined different types of evidence. They used testimonies from two different farmers, and you have the first farmer that shows and explains their experience with using chemical pesticides and fertilizers and hybrid seeds, and then the conceptual and practical agroecological learning that they got from taking part to the Slow Food Academy. And then eventually they show their results in a comparative way between conventional and agroecological practices on savings, yields, and profits. Then the second farmer presents a comparison between their experience with conventional agriculture versus agroecological practice. And at the same time, they also talk about some culturally acceptable processes related to seed savings with using agroecological practices. And then in this case, we see that we have a comparison from harvest and prices. And then they also use pictures from harvest and seeds. All of these types of evidence put together are very strong for them to convince their target audience, that in this case are farmers in local communities, to take action to join the Slow Food Academy. And if you haven't yet watched the video that was made as the communication product for their case, we strongly suggest that you do that.
There was a suggestion from Anatole, question actually. Can you share best practices on how to evaluate available evidence are strong for one case? So how do you assess whether the evidence is strong or not? And my reply on the chat was, I think it is a fantastic suggestion, and I will make sure that I share with you a checklist that would help you assessing the strength of the evidence in relation to your case.
And we also have a checklist in the online course
Yeah.
when you complete that particular module. Do we have any other questions on step 3? If not, I haven't taken a look at the time. Shall I proceed with step 4 or?
It is 10 to the hour.
Shall we perhaps take a small break? Since we have completed revising step 3 before we jump into step 4.
Yes, there is a breeze. And so that we can then in step 4 tell you what you are going to be doing over the next 2 weeks before we have another session. How long, Romina?
Shall we do 10 minutes?
Okay. It is where we are, 9:48. So we meet at 10. We'll be here at 2 minutes to 10 to continue chatting or answering questions if you want. And if you think during the break of questions, please put them on the chat and we will try to address them.
Including if you have faced any issues with registering with the course or with your online development platform. If you have any technical issues that you've been facing, you can feel free to drop questions in the chat.
Thank you. We will see you here in a while. And when we come back, we will ask you to say you are here. See you in a little while. And we're back to. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone.
Let's keep.
Is that the correct position, Robin?
No,
It is not.
because I look, I'm on the other side on the screen,
Mm.
but I'm actually to your right.
Yes. If you look at that, you tell me if it is the correct position.
Don't see it now.
And
Sorry.
I don't. Oh, it's here. There you are. iPad.
No,
No?
still opposite. It's still mirroring.
Oh, you're not seeing it.
It's okay. That's why I took it off. So I don't have to look at myself. When you're back, feel free to share. Either open your camera, give us a smile, send a thumbs up, share something in the chat,
Yes. Ask a question.
ask a question.
Hello, George. We can see you now. Hi. So give us a thumbs up. I want to see who is here. Josh is here. Luis is here. Glorious is here. Fantastic. Thank you. Elizabeth, I can see you. Yes. But I don't see anybody else. Should we assume that we're on here? Go on, Romina. Keep going.
Okay, so now we are going to look at step 4, which is about checking the case. Once you have decided on your statement, your framing, your strategy to communicate your case, the target audience, and the evidence that you're going to use, you will not be done yet because you will have to check your case before you're able to share it and use it.
You finish, and I want to ask you a question. So, so far, we expect them to have done the introduction, step 1, step 2, and step 3 in the online course.
Right, because the sessions that we are having now, these live online sessions, ideally are designed to support the self-study that people should have been doing on the online course.
And they are going to be doing step 4 this week.
Right.
And if you haven't done 1, 2, and 3, please catch up, because this over the next 2 weeks, you're supposed to be doing step 4. So by the time we meet again at the beginning of December, we would want you to have done step 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so this is what Romina is telling us, what step 4 is about.
Right. And if you still need us to share the link to the online course, please let us know in the chat so that Carlos can send it to you. And always feel free to contact us individually if you're facing any issue, registering for the course, taking the course, and so on. So step 4, it's about reviewing and improving the case that you're trying to build. And it's to be seen as a process. It's a bit of back and forth because you need to make sure that your case is ready so that you can use it and share it with your audience. So how do you actually check your case? It is about reviewing and critiquing your own work that you have been doing in the process of building your case. It involves asking peers or colleagues to review your case and provide a critical feedback so that you can check whether or not it is convincing enough. And it would be very useful if you could ask members of the target audience to provide feedback. So that it's almost like a pilot. You would be able to get a view, get a glimpse of how they react to your case. So, what is the process looking like? You will see at the top, and let me see if I can use the laser tool. Yeah. So at the top, you have the initial steps that we explain from step 1 to step 3 in the online course. You will make a statement for your case that, as we mentioned, is about saying if you do X, Y, and Z, then you will achieve so and so. Then you will decide how to frame your case and the strategy that you will use to communicate to your audience. And as we mentioned, it could be a comparison between specific agroecological practices and conventional practices. It could be value-based, it could be right-based, and then the evidence that you need to support the statement and the framing. So what you will do is you will check the case first with yourself and with peers or members of the target audience. And once you check, you will get either a response that makes you understand that your case is ready, or you will realize that for whatever reason is not ready. So what could potentially happen? It could happen that you realize, oh, this evidence actually tells me something different from what I said in my statement. So what you need to do, you need to go back and make some improvements. And that in that case, that will mean that perhaps you need to revise your statement so that it is aligned with your evidence. Or what could happen is that you realize this evidence doesn't quite match the claims that I'm trying to make in my statement. So I need some different types or additional evidence. So then again, you will realize your case is not yet ready, and you may have to go back and try to find additional evidence or use different types of evidence. Or what can happen is that when you check your case with yourself and with your colleagues or members from the target audience, you may realize that you may think, oh, my case is quite strong and it is ready to be shared and used. So then what you do would be to run a pilot with your target audience to check if your case is effective and if they respond in such a way that shows at least an intention to take action. And then based on what you observe from running your pilot, you will realize that your case may be so strong and convincing and people are so willing to take action, and then you will realize, okay, my case is ready and then I can now go ahead and use it. Or you may find that there are some other aspects that are not working, which you were not able to detect when you first checked it. So what you have to do, you may have to yet again go back and make some improvements that may have to do with any of the initial steps. So it's not maybe like a smooth process, and it can be sometimes frustrating, but it is worth going through this process if you want to have a strong case in the end.
This partly answers the question that you were asking, and who was this? Anatole. Anatole was, and hi, good to see you here, Anatole.
Yeah.
Partly answers your question about can we provide guidance? And yes, we will provide that guidance, but we know that we need to test the case. Now, we said test and check. What does that really mean?
That will mean, because I just realized there is a tiny detail I haven't mentioned that has to do with the communication product. So once you have decided your statement and framing and the evidence, you will have also chosen a specific way to communicate, a specific tool that you will use to communicate to your audience, and that will be your communication product or products. It could be one, it could be multiple. You could have like a video, you could have an audio, you could have a visual or a text format. And when you run the pilot, it means that you will have now developed your communication products, and or you will have checked the script for it. And before you say, for example, if you're editing a video, it would be very wise for you to check the script that you plan to use with your target audience to check if it is working for them, if it is effective in communicating your message. Because if you have invested already time and resources in producing a video, then if you later on realize there are things that are not working that could have been addressed in your script, it would be a little bit difficult to go back and try to, yes, and it would probably need additional resources to go back and re-edit the video. So it would be wise to do it earlier on in the process of producing the communication products.
And something I do when I am asked to check a case, and so if you ask me to check the case, what I think is I am going to play a devil advocate's role. So that means I'm going to try to find weaknesses to tell you. So when I am asking someone to check my case, I say, so what is weak here? Destroy my case. Challenge it so that I know that when I present it to the audience, it is strong. So that first step, check the case with self or peers, implies heavy criticism of the case, and it's really useful. The pilot test, then you go with a stronger case, as strong as you can, and you get feedback from them. Feedback on what doubts do they have, what additional evidence they would like to have. Does it match the system of values? Do they understand the evidence? And so that is what this process is about. And that is so important for your case.
Is there any questions so far?
I think we have
comments?
some. Oh, no, no questions. No problem. We are fine. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, just remember that it is a little bit of a back and forth process, and it's quite unlikely that you get the process from the statement to the evidence to developing and using the communication products as a linear, smooth process. And I would guess it shouldn't be, because showing that you're able to make improvements, it gives you reassurance that your case can be strong. Now, what are the things that we need to remember? We need to remember that when you check your case, you need to do it at various stages while developing your case. It is, as I mentioned, a back and forth process of making improvements. And every time you make an edit, you make a change, you should again evaluate them in a critical way. And it is very important to be flexible because we need to remain open to changing our statement, our framing, or our evidence for the case to be strong. Now, I thought it was going to, to be useful, to check the case. So let me switch. I will stop sharing. And share again. I want to share our screen so we can go to the online development platform and see what that actually means when you're practically.
Well, you get that. Anatole is asking how many times it takes the first development of cases on average. I tell you something, Anatole. It keeps on being developed. The case that you saw from Slow Food, they actually produced the case and continue developing it later on. So I think there is a point where you have to say, this is good enough, and I'm going to go with it. And I think you judged that. But it's not a single go, as Romina was saying. Over to you, Romina. We are not seeing your other screen. Yes, we are.
Yes. Right. So this is the online development platform for your case. I am already signed in, and I have some demo cases here. So let me go back. This is what it looks like when you log in. And I will take one of the random demonstration cases that we have, and I go on edit, so I can go back to check in every step. So as we see here on the top left, we have the first tab that is about the basic information for our case. And we have seen this when we first started, so I will not cover this again, but it's just to check. Then we have the second tab, that is the important one, where we have the details of our case. And here we may have our statements or statements if we have more than one. You will see that now this one is empty because it's our demo. And you will see there is a prompt on the top right that reminds you that the statement will be in the if so and so, then X, Y, and Z form. Then you will check the description of your target audience or audiences if you have more than one, the priorities and values of your target audience. Here you can check and edit the framing of your case. Here you will have the space where you describe the way you want to argue your case, that is the strategy, and the call to action that you want your target audience to make. So when you're going through the process of reviewing your case, you will go back to this development platform online, and you will be able to access your case and edit different parts. Then if you realize you need to go and change the evidence, you will then have to go to the Claims and Evidence tab, where you will see a list of claims. And as a reminder, when we talk about claim, we talk about the small points that you're trying to argue in your statement. Because in your statement, you may say, if you do A, B, C, you will get X, Y, and Z. Then this means that when you talk about ABC, the ABC will need to be broken down into claims. So for claim A, you will have one, and you will link some specific evidence in support of that claim on this platform. Then you will have claim B, and you will again attach some evidence. So what does it look like? You have this demo claim that I am selecting here. And when you go on evidence, you will see that the evidence the number of evidence, the pieces of evidence that you have attached to that claim will show here in the middle where it says evidence count. And when you go to edit, you will be able to make changes to the claim that you want to use in your statement, and you will also be able to make changes in the evidence that you attach.
And you will also be able to add pieces of evidence.
Right. And if you want to add, you will go to this button on the top right where it says new evidence. So say I want to add one piece of evidence, and now I'm just going to type some letters just to add an entry. And here, as we covered in the previous sessions, you will be able to attach that as part of your communication products, add the description or a URL if you're using any evidence that comes from online sources. You will be able to upload some files if you're using files for your evidence, add other sources, and attach an indicator to that particular piece of evidence. And I am sure I need to, yes, add something here. And I'm just going to add a random indicator and create. And now you see that there is a new piece of evidence attached to this claim.
And Luis has a comment.
Mhm.
And in this, when you are developing the case as part of the course, what you build your case, you cannot share this with anybody. It's not shareable for review. Luis says he has printed it as a PDF to be able to share it with someone to review. And that's right. That's something that in the future, Luis, we can change if we get feedback that you would like to share it. But so far, this is for your work and the work of your team. How can you see the whole case, Romina? Can you show us that you can actually see the whole case if you are?
Let me save my changes so that I can go back to my cases. What happens here is that let me choose another demonstration case from the list of cases that we have here. So you select it, and you see that here you have two options. One is edit, and when you edit, you will remain in this environment where you can make edits. But now, if you go on preview for your case, it will take you to a page where you will have a preview of what your case would look like if it were to be published on the Agroecology Fund catalog. Now, this top space that you see as being blank usually has a background picture that organizations have chosen for their case. And then you will see what your case would look like with your title, the languages, the tags that you have attached, the countries, you can specify a specific geographic area within your case, and then you can jump to communication products, case details, claims and evidence, or other details. For the sake of seeing it in its entirety, I will just keep scrolling. So here you have communication products, and if you had any videos or text formats, they would appear up here. And then here, now you see a blank structure because the details of this case have not yet been entered, but you would be able, what your statement, audience, and so on, every aspect that we covered about building your case, you would see what they look like in the online catalog. And that means, remember the claims and evidence attached to them that we looked at just a moment ago? They will appear here, and you will have a list. And then you will have other details where you can add more pictures for your case and your organization name and logo.
And at this point, if you wanted to share it with anybody, the easiest way to do it is to go to the three little points that are on the right-hand side to the top of the screen, there next to the R, Romina.
1 second, because I have the panel here that is covering.
I see. There, and then you can print it and share it.
Yeah.
Because that URL is private and you will not be able to share it for the time being.
But often what I can share from the process of supporting the development of previous cases, it was often very useful to work hand in hand between this backend where you're making edits and here. So when you make an edit here and you want to see right away what it looks like, if you keep this tab open at the same time and just refresh it, you can see real time the changes that you're making for your case, and you can see immediately if there is something that doesn't look quite right to you, and you can go back and change it again.
Yeah, right. And we got a question.
Yeah.
How can we submit the case? When is the deadline? Okay. There is no deadline in the course for submitting a case, because what we want you to do is to practice. So you can continue with your learning process here without a deadline. In January 2026, there is going to be a call for proposals from the Agroecology Fund for supporting the full development of a case. And those who apply need to have completed the course. And it's going to be a requirement to have the certificate of completion of the course. Once they are selected, they will receive a small grant for investing time to develop the case and effort to develop the communication products. With that, then you will be able to transfer, if you've been working on a case already, transfer it from here, not from to the online development platform for cases. This one is the testing and student version of it. Once you are developing your case, we will migrate your case to the platform for development and publishing. It will be published when you have finished it and you have gone through a process of peer review and is strong, then the case gets published.
And it's what we see here as status. It's going to change. So now the cases that are first started as a trial, they are in the proposal stage. And this stage is going to change as they are selected for developing a case for being published on the catalog.
Yeah, and yes, and Luis has got another question on the chat. Yes, Luis, if you include your peers in the platform, then they can see everything that you have done, and that's a really good way of getting them also to contribute. And PDF works. There are no geographic focus of interest or priorities for the small grants. So everybody who is invited, and you would be invited as participants of this course, can submit an application. I believe there are going to be between 15 and 25 small grants for development of cases in 2025, and they are going to be developed from January to September. From January to September 2026.
And the fact that you have such a few months to develop your case refers to what we were saying earlier, that it takes time and you may need to go back and forth and revise and change.
Yeah. Good.
And also, like a reminder that when you are using this platform, if you face any issues or you have any doubts, you can always get in touch with us, with me or Carlos individually, to support you. Now, let me stop sharing this and go back to sharing my other screen. And should we share again the link to the online development platform in the chat?
Yeah, I'll do that.
So, what to do now? If you have already completed steps from 1 to step 3, you should complete step 4 in the online course. If you haven't completed the previous steps, then it would be a very good idea to complete steps from 1 to 4 before next session. Remember that the online course, has a forum in different languages. We have it in English, Spanish, French, Portuguese, and Russian. So you are strongly encouraged to share your questions and post in the forum. And that is a very good way also to help others, because there may be other people that face the same issues that you may encounter. And by posting and responding, you can respond to each other. We are going to read the questions as well, and we are going to respond, and so that everyone can benefit from getting clarifications. It would also be a very good idea that as you learn the steps from 1, 2, and 3, and 4 in the online course, you then at the same time go to the online case development platform and try practicing them. Because often it's only when we put knowledge into practice that we realize when we have doubts or when we need further clarifications. So trying to practice it is going to be very helpful. And then you are strongly encouraged to practice checking your case and try to look at it in a critical way, trying to find little faults in your case so that you can make improvements. Any question or comments so far? If not, a reminder about our next session that is going to be in December, first week of December on the 8th. And that will be covering step 5, that is about using your case. And we will see how you're going to put your evidence-based case to effective use with your target audience. Last chance for questions on any of the steps or on anything else. Technical issues, doubts, confusion.
Or suggestions.
Or suggestions as well. Requests, feedback.
If there is nothing else, then thank you very much for joining us this morning, this afternoon, and we hope to see you on the 8th of December.
And to hear from you in between.
Yes, please get in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And thank you to our interpreters.
Yes, thank you so much.